All right, welcome everybody. We're going to call to order the newly titled Louisiana Uniform Construction Code Council, also LUC now. Ms. Tarek, would you do a roll call, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jason Acock,
Here.
Juliet Cassane,
Present.
Trent Clark,
Here.
Jackie Dodakis, Jay Dufour,
Here.
James Edwards, Fred Simball,
Here.
Andrea Ford, Ken Jones,
Here.
Brian Moss,
Here.
Nick LeBlanc,
Here.
Pat McCormick, PJ Odom,
Here.
Rodney Taylor,
Here.
Charles Visser,
Here.
Michael Witch.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move to our Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Kazan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to move right on to agenda item A, which is a consideration of the July 7th, 2026 LSU CCC minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? Are there any comments regarding minutes or modifications needed? Hearing none, I'd like to hear a motion to accept those minutes.
Motion.
Motion made. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, let's move directly into B. Welcome introductions, Mr. Hassert.
Good morning, members. Welcome to the first meeting of the Louisiana Uniform Construction Code Commission. Y'all no longer are LSUC. Now you're lucky, so let's move forth through this agenda and do some good things.
All right, that was easy enough. We'll move directly into item C, public comment, non-agenda items. Are any items from the general public that they'd like us to discuss today, have a comment on? Please come please introduce yourself at the mic.
Good morning. My name is Richard Wilson, and I'm here from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I got some from Sean Clary from IATMO, a few point of interest things about backflows. I can point out some information on it at this time or whenever you want me to do it.
I believe we're going to discuss that as item 3
Right.
of D. I'd
Okay.
prefer if we got to that section if we could do it, unless there's something else outside of the agenda we'd like to discuss right now. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment or anything that's non-agenda item? Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, Lord.
Good morning, Rick Foster, building official, City of Denham Springs. I will make this as absolutely quick as possible. Thank you, Brad. The new inspector certification, manufactured housing installation inspector. There was a list that's supposed to be provided by the commission. How are we moving on that?
Could I handle that?
Please.
It's not quite into rule yet, Mr. Foster, but we are going to recommend one class specifically, but we will accept any other class that meets the HUD certification standards, and that should be out in the next couple of days.
Good deal.
It's an online course, 8 hours, 10 hours?
12 hours.
Oh, okay, 12 hours.
Yeah, it's 12.
And just bear in mind too, as kind of a side note, but related, is the installation has to be, the current training requirements for an installation guy to install the manufactured home is very minimal. Their standard in the next few months as well is going to go to a HUD standard. Your course for the installation inspector portion of it is going to be the installation course plus 3 hours, 4 hours. Obviously, I got my hours wrong. Tara's telling me to. So listen to Tara, don't listen to me. But we're trying to get you guys to a standard where somebody can certify that instead of a 1 hour course made up by somebody who's never been in this industry.
Well, yeah.
So
If we're going to do it, we'd like to do it right.
And that was the whole purpose for the change of the Manufactured Housing Commission. And we're trying to, obviously the goal is 100% inspection. I realize that's probably unattainable, but that's the goal. That they should have the same protection standards as a stick-built home.
If the rule is adopted, when would that be? By?
Tara? Oh, it will be by January, even after we do it as emergency rule. Yeah, even if we have to do it as an emergency rule, because Manufactured Housing Authority switches to the Contractors Board in January, on January 1. There's just a lot of moving parts, so we're just trying to get everybody synced together. We're going to give you all the information we can, but there's obviously a lot that we're still learning through this.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. All right, any other public comment on any non-agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move into our new business. So item D, discussion items. Mr. Witch, if you could comment, we do engineered patio covers.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, it was brought up, patio covers and what are the requirements for them. And there was, I guess, some uneasiness that a lot of times those structures are required to be engineered. And so I just included 2 examples of what we normally see at our office. One of them, where you can tell it was stamped by
Mike, Tara, can you put that up on the screen? Sorry about that.
one of them where you could tell it was stamped by a Louisiana engineer, not that one. Let me just cover this one first then, since you got it up. This one is more of a, oh, here we go. Actually, let me find it here. Yeah, so this first one that you see is kind of the standard patio cover that you would buy from a supply house that a guy comes up and puts up at your house, usually in a day or two. So while it is hard to get plans that are stamped by a Louisiana engineer for these things, oftentimes they do have engineering on it, and it's usually from Florida, because I assume they've been requiring it for quite some time. And usually who's ever buying these patio covers can get these plans for free. They just need to ask for it. The caveat is we're supposed to only accept Louisiana licensed engineers, but for patio covers, it's like I said, it's just really difficult to do. And when you try and push too hard, people just go put them up without a permit. Then the second example is when people do their own design for a patio cover. And in those cases, it usually is a Louisiana engineer, and it usually is required that you get a Louisiana licensed engineer to do that. But they're drawing those plans from scratch, because you're making your own parts and pieces and components and putting it together. So the question is do we have to require engineering on these types of structures? And unfortunately, in the hurricane-prone areas, these are the ones when they're put up poorly that become sales, and you can't even find them after the storm sometimes. So there's just 2 examples of what we see at our office. We haven't been a stickler for the prefab patio covers having a Louisiana stamp, but anything that is designed from scratch, we do require a Louisiana stamp. So I'd love to hear suggestions from others on how they do it and what the best path is forward, because we certainly want to get these things permitted, because they do damage to structures in a storm event.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the conversation on this has come out of, a 20 by 30, pretty standard metal roof cover that we've all seen, and increased the cost on that pretty substantially. So we've heard some of the legislators down there regarding this. And one idea, something we may want to consider, if you look at the rest of the I codes within the non-prescribed areas, so your low wind speed areas, there's specifications for this. And so this may be something, Mike, that we want to look at inserting some details directly into the code for some of the high wind area. And that's not going to be a one size fit all, right? That's going to be a generic, like we're saying, that not the full design from ground up. But if we could insert some of that language into the code itself, I think it provides a little bit of relief for a huge portion of them that you're saying, look, they're not even getting permits. They're small enough of a project. They should be getting permits, but when it becomes too expensive. And so I'd really like to hear from the board on that, if that would be something we want to do. We could amend that code to provide some of these somewhat standardized details like you see in the rest of the I codes in areas that aren't in the same wind hazard. And it would, again, give some relief. And if you want to do a certain method, well, then that would be something you'd want to go get certified by a Louisiana engineer or designed by a Louisiana engineer. Do you have any thoughts on that, Mike?
I think I think we would have to consult with a structural engineer more so than what I think is good enough. If we're going to put some quote unquote prescriptive details in there, I think we should have someone who is a licensed engineer, take a look at that and provide those details. Because what I provided here is just one example.
Yeah.
And it may not be the best way to do it, but.
No, absolutely. That's what I'd say. I mean, I think that the uniqueness of this board is it covers a large portion of the construction industry, and I think that some of the relationships, some of the bodies that are represented may be able to assist with that to provide maybe some typical details, again, that we could insert. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, but if we could capture the bulk of it and make things a little bit more palatable for the citizen and the code official as well to say, hey, look, let's make it make sense. Let's get buy-in from the community on these regulations like we would if we were in just a little bit further north in the state where it would be allowed. But we need to engage with some of those design professionals to help us come up with this and then take that information as, again, a template and hey, you can do it this way. If you have something that doesn't fit within this, well, then just similar to the building codes, it's just non-prescribed. You'll need a design professional for that.
Mike, if I'm understanding your question also, are you concerned, as I understand it currently, there's no requirements or prescription for any design professional to engineer or design these types of solutions, so it falls back upon the local building officials to kind of enforce something. And that's what you're trying to kind of relay here today?
Yeah, so I mean, I think at our last meeting, it was just brought up that there was a feeling amongst some legislators in areas where the building official is asking for an engineered design, that it's overkill, and so they were looking for a easier way to put these structures up. And look, there is some truth to the fact that for small projects, the harder you make it, the less likely they're going to come get a permit because they can knock it out in a day and move on. So there is a balance there. My main concern is just that we still do the best we can to make sure these structures don't cause damage in a storm event. So however we get there, I'm fine with it, but it's just a matter of up until this point, we haven't really had any other options out there other than to ask for the engineered plans behind these.
Wouldn't the code prescribe, though, that structure be built or to the same kind of wind load requirements as the rest of the structure? And so that's kind of embedded into the code already?
Correct.
And so I guess I'm looking at, there's a little bit of a slippery slope there if we're mandating somebody to come and stamp or certify something beyond what the code's already saying.
Well, the code is mandating it. I think the challenge is that it's specifically saying that the prescriptive requirements of the IRC don't cover that.
Right.
And so you're having to hire a design professional, sometimes for a pretty small project. And some of the legislators are saying, hey, look, let's look at some of the affordability side of it. And is there a solution where we could look at limited requirements or different requirements for this? And so I think that's kind of the question more than anything. And then, again, in the rest of the code, it's specified. So the idea would be to specify it in this area as well to a comfortable extent for the board.
Yeah, so if I can, I think reviewing this, there's also the merger of a manufactured product. This first example you gave, for instance, gives you the wind load characteristics of the structure. So if you're purchasing a product, I think the merger, though, is where this might be up to 123 miles an hour. Obviously, we have wind zones here in Louisiana that are greater than 123. So how does that come together? So I think reviewing it would be worthwhile. Yeah.
Okay. I saw a hand from the public. Do you have a comment, sir? Please go up to the mic and introduce yourself, please.
I'm Rodney Richard, Building Code Inspections. The pictures that Mr. Michael just showed answered the questions between a Louisiana engineer and somebody out of state. If you go back to those pictures, two in particular, you have the one out of state tied into the fascia board. I have cases where those have literally fell on top of cars parked under them. Now go to the Louisiana engineer, which is that one right there. You see how they have posts along the house also and outside? That structure is going to hang in there. And you just flashed into the roof, but you're not expecting the subfascia to hold up all that water weight. And that's where we had failures falling on cars. I just want to say that for what it's worth. And when somebody comes permitting me with an out-of-state engineer, I ask them to add those posts next to the house. And that's a very minor cost, some cases compared to a Louisiana engineer. I just want to throw that out.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. All right, is there any further discussion on this for today? Any further discussion from the public? Hearing none, we're going to move on to D2, inspector training for updated Uniform Construction Code, January 1st, 2027. Mr. Hassert?
I think we've all agreed that inspector training, building official training is paramount and it's part of your charter. We're still faced with the same challenges that you guys have been faced since last August, which is truly a lack of funding. I think that the contractors board would be willing to throw some money towards that to facilitate that, but I don't know the level of their commitment as of yet. But I think the point that we put on the agenda for is what would y'all like to see? How would y'all like to do that?
Mr. Witch?
Thank you. And that was going to be one of my asks, is if there could be an agreement between the contractors board and this commission to where when we do start receiving that funding, we can pay them back for whatever.
I assure you that contract's already written, Mr. Wood.
Okay, good. So, you know what, some of the ideas that I had is, quite frankly, for the last 20 years, when we adopt codes, the training's been a little bit hit or miss as far as the updates and the changes. So it takes a really long time for the code officials as well as the contractors to all get on the same page and understand what needs to happen. Also, the training many times has been limited to the residential code, and there's people that are dealing with the commercial code, the architects, the engineers, the commercial contractors have just kind of been left out there on their own to learn it. So I would love to see something that's a lot more comprehensive, that has not only residential but commercial classes throughout the state, and also a webinar component to it as well, that could be shorter classes, 1 hour or 2 hour classes that we could hit main topics. All that being said, to put on high quality training like that, you really need, I think, to put out a request for proposals and have a company or group that has the right personnel and the right training materials that will customize it with the Louisiana amendments. And I've seen it done in other states, and it's really effective. And I think, you can put a package together, and it's probably not as costly as you would expect it to be, because there's a lot of kind of standard costs in our industry as far as what they charge for training. So, but I think if we did that, we would have a number of people that would bid on it, and then we would have options on who's proposing the best course of action over the next year or so.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I support that concept very much, Mr. Witch. I think the struggle that you're going to have is timing currently. If I understand this correctly, your new building code is intended to come in place in January, being it's August the 4th, 5th, whatever it may be. By the time we get through that, we're going to be in January. So that's something we should start addressing very quickly in January. But in the meantime, is there something that's an alternative that you would like to address or propose? It looks like Mr. Poussaint may have some ideas.
Maybe.
Yeah, hi, Bill Poussaint, building official, East Baton Rouge. I just wanted to, let the board know, Bowl is offering some training specifically for the residential, the IRC significant changes. We have a class coming up in August. We plan to give this, that class is going to be in Lafayette. We plan to give the same class again in October in Jefferson Parish. We are advertising that as best we can. Certainly we don't have scheduled a class in North Louisiana. But if the board wants to focus more on commercial stuff, we do have a couple classes that we already have scheduled for residential. And maybe we could also help us advertise by doing an email blast out from Luck instead of Bowl. That might be helpful.
So what I would just like to add to that, and thank you, Bill, for that, is we'd be more than happy to share that by email blast on both the contractor side and the commission side and post on websites. If it helps, you're obviously welcome to this building. If we can facilitate the use of anybody else's building, we can work that out too.
Sure.
Just whatever y'all want to do.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think the other side of it too is not even necessarily just the 24 I codes, but looking down the line, what's the plan, right? And assumingly we'll establish a committee, puts people to get, some kind of RFP, RFQ set up, and then have that discussion of what do we want this training to look like? If we'd started this 20 years ago, we'd have a program in place today, and we don't. And so for me, I think that it would be very challenging to create this before the implementation of the 24 I codes. But the 27 I codes is right around the corner. And so setting up a system in play, I think, is the best way where we look at, I think historically CEUs has probably been the most significant driver. And I think that that's good. But I think that some practical applications, some shorter, some smaller classes, things of that nature could be very beneficial, especially with things like, and I'll use energy code as an example. A large portion of the state does not understand the requirements. And in my experience, what happens to the local building official when they don't understand blower door, they just don't enforce it. And I think that it's not so much a fight as much as it may be a lack of understanding. And so I think that some of our training may center more around that as well, and not just be a CEU component, but also a practical hands-on for some people in that industry specifically. And I think that a committee could help with that. Mr. Witch?
Yeah, and look, I fully recognize that we can't get it all done before January 1st. I mean, that's obvious. We were a little bit behind the 8 ball anyway, when the whole transition and so forth.
But I would like to thank y'all for recognizing the need for that, because it has been a sorely ignored component in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if we can't get it done by January 1st, I mean, if we can really have a comprehensive training package all throughout next year, I still think it'll go a long way towards improving enforcement. But we've also just focused heavily on code officials, and we haven't focused a lot on the architects and engineers and the contractors, which I think is just as important, because the more they know, the easier they make our jobs as well. So I think if we can do that, it'll be a big step in the right direction. And I agree with Nick that if we get a head start on the 27 codes, doesn't mean you have to adopt them and put them in play, but we'll know what we need to have training on, and we can actually get that training before those codes are adopted next time around. So if you're going to form some sort of committee or whatever, then I'm happy to volunteer to share my ideas, and look forward to hearing other people's ideas as well.
Don't worry. All right, if there's no other further board discussion, I'd like to move on to item 3. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Nicholas Vasquez, City of St. George, Chief Building Official. So I agree with everything that y'all said, especially when it comes to training for inspectors, contractors, engineers as well. But I want to also put out there not just the code cycles, but having training when they have changes in between code cycles, such as when we went to a new energy code, Manual J, SD, when the Department of Health put grease traps to the local level. So different things like that from speaking to other code officials throughout the state.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
All right, if there's nothing further, we're going to move on to item 3, which I think the bulk of the room may be here for. House Concurrent Resolution 103 relative to backflow prevention inspection frequency. Somebody from the general public want to come up? I'm looking at LDH specifically. And if you could give us a brief synopsis of y'all's interpretation, and just for the rest of the board that may not be as familiar with the issue, that would be appreciated.
Okay. Good morning. Again, my name is Richard Wilson. I'm a lifelong resident of East Baton Rouge Parish. I'm retired from the Plumbers Pipefitters Local 198, 18 years of service. Still got some things I do involved with them. And I'm also retired from the City of Baton Rouge Fire Department, 25 years. I'm here standing in for Sean Cleary with IATMO. I'm sure most of you may have known him, whatever. He's in a class in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He called me yesterday, asked me could I come up here and put in some words for him because he couldn't make it. I've been teaching and instructing classes for certification of backflow prevention assemblies. I started around 1990. This was the first time I got started. We started from scratch. Back then it was real just generic, and it's done advanced pretty good over the last 36 years. This year makes 36 years that I've been teaching, proctoring, training, or whatever. And I've probably trained over 1,000 more people in that time span. So I know a little bit about it. What these backflow preventer valves are, you see them out by the street by the water meter when you're driving down the highway, especially for commercial buildings and so forth. It is what it says it is, backflow preventer. It prevents backflow. Water comes into your building and so forth, and you use it, customer uses it, and then that water, we don't want any kind of trash or chemicals or whatever they may be doing, photo lab, whatever it could be, to get back into the public water system. So that backflow is just a type of a check valve to keep the water or liquids, whatever, from receding backwards, okay? So that stops it. And it's a protection device. It's no different than you may have a seatbelt on your vehicle driving down the road. That's a protection device. You put that seatbelt in and snap it closed to protect yourself in case there is a collision, whatever. We hope we never need it. The same way with a backflow assembly. We put it out by the street hoping we never need to use it, but it is a protection for everybody because drinking water is an asset that we all got to have. You're drinking water right now. You want to make sure that water is clean and safe and pure from whatever is serving for that particular building. You don't want it to get back into our system. And another thing, not only that, if you got a breakout in the street, we have somebody hit a fire hydrant, whatever, water flowing out, whatever. All these buildings, especially the commercial buildings, are protected from having all that water in that particular building to gush backwards, to be wasted out in the street or whatever. Okay, so with the backflow preventer in place, it's going to prevent not only chemicals and so forth to backflow into the water system, it's going to protect the integrity of the water system, keep the pressure up per se, because all those buildings will not lose their water during the drainage. So it's a protection device. Is it working? Well, we don't know. We got to go and test it, and that's the provision of here today to protect our testing. And I got some talking points I'm going to cover in just a second. I'm not going to be too much longer. These valves have moving parts moving inside the valve, okay, for hours on with fine sediment, bits of shavings of PVC pipe and other materials could possibly work its way into the water system. So if you got a breakout in the street, you got to saw that pipe, repaired, whatever, little shavings so forth will come out. It could get into the water system, and those shavings can work its way into the backflow preventer. And that little particular shaving, because I've seen it happen before, and a lot of plumbers will tell you that, especially for PVC pipe, you get shavings, and it'll get inside of that backflow preventer assembly to prevent the check valves and so forth from closing off tight because it's lodged right there to have an opening for it. And you may not know that it's there unless you do a testing because the valve would fail. Okay. It's not 100%. I mean, you could go out there today and test that valve. It could be 100% pass rate, no problem. Then that could be, like I said, an incident that caused a problem or whatever. The next week, something could cause that backflow preventer to fail. So if it fails, if you know about it, you should be repaired. But I'm saying sometimes you may go as up to a year before you get back to that particular backflow preventer assembly to be tested. So that's why it's important that it is set up to be tested on a regular annual basis to protect everybody, the public and everybody, to have safe, pure drinking water. Okay. In my opinion, anyone connected to backflow prevention assembly, whether you're out there testing them, you're out there installing them, you're out there repairing them, or you're surveying the situation, or regulating any phase of the valve, which we're here talking about, I recommend they should at least take a class on that. We're talking about training and so forth. Sean offers a good class. I've taught many classes myself. They come to a 40-hour class for backflow prevention to be certified. And you'd be surprised what you learn about these valves. You go down the road, you see them, big old valves sitting out by the gate. What is that? What does it do? How does it work? Why is it there? This class will tell you the importance of that particular valve. So a few talking points that Sean wanted me to bring up today. This is Watts. Watts is a brand name for one of the particular backflow preventers. They got different ones, Cobranco, Watts, and so forth. Febco, but Watts is one. The Watts statement of the testing of backflow assemblies, Watts is the largest backflow manufacturer in the United States, the largest in the United States. This statement is the literature pack with every backflow assembly sale. So they send the literature with the backflow that they sell. Need for periodic inspection / maintenance. This product must be tested periodically in compliance with local codes, but at least once per year. If you get a code book, chapter 6 in it, it's going to cover backflow, and it's going to say shall be tested once a year or annually. Not only once a year, but also if it's been repaired, if it got whatever, it has to be tested every time you touch it. If you install one from the get-go, it should be tested to make sure it's working. You don't want to put it in and not know if it's working or not, so you document that. Documentation is very important. And then if there's a breakage in the line or whatever, and you got to repair it or get in it, or work on it to stop it from draining or whatever, it needs to be tested. And again, annually it should be tested. It should be tested and inspected in accordance with NFPA 13 or NFPA 25. Corrosive water conditions and unauthorized adjustments or repairs could render this product. So if anybody tampering with it, handy in, you get out there and say, well, I want to just tap into that and put a hose bib on it to water the lawn. It can't be done. That's why you go test it to make sure nobody has tampered with it. It's a safety device. Just like if it's on a fire system, it's got flow meters on it. If the water comes on, that means that the sprinkler head might have went off and the alarm's going to go off to let you know that water is going to hopefully put that fire out, whatever. But it's got to be tested to make sure it's working. I mean, we heard stories, of water systems don't have the water in it and so forth, but that's why it should be tested to cover all that. Okay, another thing, the HCR 103 is incorrect with the information below in red. He sent it yesterday, got it in red writing right there. Calls for surveys to be done 10 years. Surveys are used to determine cross connections exist in a water system, and it protects is needed to install cross connections. It has nothing to do with testing of backflow assemblies. Two different animals. A surveying is a third-party organization and whatever. It can't be a company that's going to go fix it because they could, doctor it a little bit, but it's a third party that's going to have nothing to do with repairing it. Point out what backflow situations are occurring in a particular building, whatever. Now, I know we're talking more about residential. The same thing, a lot of residential backflow vendors, the testing on it is a little gray area on that about them. So, when they should be tested and so forth. If one's in the line, at least that's better. That's a step forward to keep water from serving back into the flow system. Okay, it says right here, other states have implemented reduced testing frequency of residential backflow prevention assemblies, including the state of Wisconsin, which requires testing of low-hazard residential service connections every 10 years, pursuant to Wisconsin Administrative Code NR 81015. that statement right there is misleading. It does not say anything about testing annually. Then that's the Wisconsin code. It says this is information from the required state of Wisconsin test form. Owner's information. The backflow preventer is a mechanical device and designed to protect the potable water supply system from being contaminated. That's all. It's just a protection device. That's all it is. There's a physical connection. It's got to be tied in physically. There's nothing, no air gap. Equipment of water, either unknown or questionable quality, therefore requiring the installation of backflow preventers to ensure that this device is working as designed. If there's anything disturbed with it, the warranty and the liability of it is going to be washed away because you can't go out there and tamper with one. The test should be conducted on each backflow preventer prior to being put in service, before you put it in service, after any repairs, and a minimum of once a year thereafter. That's in the Wisconsin code. That's the testing part. 1 year, okay, repaired or installed or tested. Surveying is 10 years. The surveying is way different than the testing, and that's where the complication comes in. It says 10 years, but it's misread right there, because in the Wisconsin code it says every 10 year surveying, testing, once a year, and so forth. I think that's all I got on it right now. Like I say, I've been doing this for 36 years, and so I'm gonna go now. Feel safe to go get a good glass of water, because I know it's gonna be safe because it's been protected by a backflow preventer. Thank you for your time very much.
Thank you,
Question
Mr.
for
Wilson.
you, sir. Sir, question for you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Do you have any anecdotal opinion of how often these systems fail when the testing's done annually?
My opinion, from what I've understood, I don't really have no fact on it, but they do fail. They fail, and I don't know what percentage, but they are well built. They tested it over 2 years in the lab, a year out in the field and a year in the lab out in California. I can't think of the college right now, but anyway. They go to a strenuous testing. They're not no cheap thing. It's not no cheap toy you put out there, plastic thing or whatever, that's going to fail on you 6 months down the road. They'll last for years. But when you get, water itself, you've got a lot of impurities that goes through that water. You see rust stains sometimes on water pipe or whatever, with the minerals and the iron inside of it. So those little rust stains and so forth will get in there and affect that working part of the backflow preventer, as far as the check valves and the disc and so forth like that might go bad. But the brass part itself is going to be there forever pretty much. But the interior part of it is what deteriorates because of the fluctuation of the water, the pressure of the water, the velocity of the water going through there, pressure changes, and all kind of stuff. So the only way to know that that's not working internally, you got to hook that gauge up to it and read that gauge properly to see. It's going to tell you where your problem is and needs to be repaired.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
I'm going to read the digest on this just so the rest of the board has a brief understanding of it. It just says, request that the Louisiana State Uniform Construction Code Council study whether annual required inspection of backflow prevention devices, barometric loops, and air gaps is necessary, or whether a less frequent testing schedule could maintain adequate safety and protection of water or reducing cost to property owners. Currently in the I-codes for the 21 series, there's some amended language that does require annual inspections, and I don't think that portion of it changed, but just know that's where that's found in section 312 of the IPC. What we adopted at the July meeting is identical language. It moved into section 312.11 from 312.10, but the current language that's proposed to the legislature for the January implementation of I-codes is an annual inspection. And I think that's a standard we've had for a while with us. The concurrent House resolution directs us to hear, certainly from plumbing industry and homeowner industry, and it also calls out the Louisiana Department of Health specifically. So if we have somebody representing them here today, I'd love to hear y'all's comments, certainly on what, I don't know if y'all can recommend as a state agency a time period or not, but I'd like to hear from you all what your thoughts are on this if you're available to speak. Yes, sir, please come to the mic.
I just want to add, we have a good training for these employees that go out there for backflow. We just put on a class about 3 weeks ago, first part of June, here in Baton Rouge. We had 42 people that went through the class, and then the following week we went to Metairie, and we had 42 people there also. We can't teach more than 10 people in a class with a proctor who oversees the test. So we had 20 people in one class for that day for testing, and we had 20 for the next day. But we had to hire 2 proctors because we got strict restrictions on how we teach, and we hold classes here about maybe 3 to 4 times a year in Louisiana. And Sean Cleary, he travels all over the country. He's probably the most verified instructor there is in the country. But we have a good training program. Those guys, when they come in there that Monday morning and leave out that Friday, they got a smile on their face because they have learned something. It's just not one of those just walk through and give me a piece of paper. They enjoy the class and they learn a lot from it. But we have a good training to take care of that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Certainly sounds comprehensive. Thank you again, Mr. Wilson. Yes, sir.
If you'll indulge me, I can add a little bit of information to this, kind of a
Please.
little bit of history. There was a few years ago, there was some mandates from LDH to water purveyors to start tracking all these backflow prevention devices and start actually actively enforcing it. There was, I want to say it was Mr. Peacock put a bill or something up shortly after these municipalities were starting to enforce it. It didn't make it out, and then this one has come up recently. This is actually in my area. This is an HOA driven because it's a burden on them to have their backflow preventer tested every year at a cost of $100 a piece, and so that's kind of where this is coming from. But one of the big things that I have concerns about changing the frequency on it is, if you look at throughout the state with the gumbo grant, and I'm not picking on them, but there is a tremendous amount of work being done in right-of-ways, utilities. On the way down here, I talked to our director of utilities, and we've already incurred over $100,000 in this year in damages to our water system. So, like the gentleman was saying, there is a lot of activity going on in these right-of-ways, so we start damaging and breaking these, there is potential for that cross-contamination.
Sure. Is there any other public comment on this? Please.
See, you have my letter there. Stephen Jubert, LDH Engineering Services Section Chief. We're named in the concurrent resolution there as support for looking at this to attempt to maybe change the frequency. I think it's relative to the question that he asked about the material understanding of it. Do you have an understanding or anecdotal or even testing reports that would provide for support that these things are lasting longer to kind of stretch it out? So you almost need some type of research or device-related testing records to support whether you could change the frequency. I think relative to what the gentleman testified about the nature of the devices, they can foul with different materials that are present in water. The materials degrade over time, and so some of the components there are going to wear that need to be tested. So in order for you to do that, I think you would have to have some research to back it up. Our position from the health department there kind of states that we're wanting to keep the understanding of the annual testing in place. We're open to reviewing other codes and stuff relative to it references other states and what they've done with their rules there, but there's not a lot of move by others to change the frequency to something less. So we stand by to kind of support any background as best as we can to move to something different, if that's what you guys choose to do. But I think there's a lot of support definitely in keeping it the way it is now, and that's the way most other jurisdictions and other states stands in that space as well. So, any questions? I don't know I can't see from here what you have highlighted there, but relative to what we do as far as the water system, we are responsible for making sure that they have a cross connection program, which then that references other codes relative to their actions there. But as a deficiency with respect to the protective nature of these devices, they're required to have inventories of their customers, policing and managing devices relative to customers' uses, and then all of those devices, whether they're residential or commercial, will have to be tested annually. And then we're actively reviewing their records to make sure there's customers are accounted for, and then there's adequate testing for that. And if they don't have those records in our reviews of their system, then they'll fall in deficiency for that part of the code, which is relative to the requirements of Part 12. All of the other requirements relative to what we're talking about are indirectly in other codes, and then that's under the jurisdiction of the local plumbing official, which falls out of the health department's regulations there.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. No, I agree. I think that any decisions we made when we amend nationally recognized and reviewed codes, I think that it needs to be based on data. I think that that's the best way to make decisions when it comes to this type of thing. And so I would say that if we're going to relax regulations, it would be wise to have some data saying that, look, these things just don't fail anymore. And if that's the case, I think that there can be some good conversation to be had. As it sits now, we have voted as a group to keep the annual testing. It doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to listen. We certainly are. But I just would point out that, in my opinion, if we're going to relax regulation, it should be based on data, not necessarily, that certainly we want to consider affordability, and I can understand this HOA's concerns with getting them tested. At the same token, I take a lot of weight from the health department, who's tasked with a significant challenge. And when these things go sideways, they go sideways, right? It's not a small thing. It's not getting shocked by a switch. It's water systems contaminated that can, destroy lives. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning. Excuse me. My name is Mitch LaBaugh. I am the president of Backflow Prevention Services. Like the gentleman before me said, the gentleman who performed the training, I likewise performed training in Louisiana for 16 years. There's a background. What I also noticed too, and I'm assuming each of you have the document from the Louisiana Department of Health. I don't know that. You will see in there as a reference the AWWA manual importeen reference is an international manual that's used internationally around the world as a mechanism for putting together programs, testing, etc. I was the chair, personally, nice honor, the chair of the last revision to that manual. Okay. So based on that, I'm just trying to give you a little bit of my background as to why I'm here. I do actually have an answer to your question. I've also been managing programs in multiple states for a couple of decades, maybe. And the answer to your question on the failure rate, it depends. There's a lot has to do with the water system and the cleanliness of the water. To piggyback off what the gentleman said before about the PVC shavings, things of this nature, sand, incompressibles in the water. Any of that getting into a check valve will cause that backflow preventer to fail. I have personally seen on one of my assemblies at my facility, 1 grain of sand in the right place, believe me, it's an exception, will cause that backflow preventer to fail the test. And you can have contaminants coming back in. So your numbers are, and these numbers are really difficult to have concrete numbers on. What I've experienced managing programs typically is going to range from the low teens to the mid 20% of failure. Years ago, I think the gentleman from Baton Rouge, plumbing official, is here. Years ago, maybe 15 years ago, Mr. Craig Blanchard and I actually rode around Baton Rouge looking at residential backflow preventers and those as referenced just a minute ago in the medians and the roads. And we spent hours. And we noticed that, just keeping track of the numbers, we came up with about 93% of the backflow preventers that we looked at, the pressure vacuum breakers for irrigation systems, were installed improperly, not at the correct height. Okay, so there's some tasks. Most residential, my experience on managing programs, most residential backflow preventers aren't tested annually. Many water systems are just starting to put their backflow prevention programs together. So it's a real challenge out there. But failure rates, to answer your question, the warm fuzzy feeling number would be about 20% failure of those that are tested. Okay, they're not the plumbing side of it, if there's not a containment assembly and it's internal, it's just not being enforced on the isolation point of use internal irrigation systems, which is a pretty big issue. But I understand the plumbing officials have a lot to do, but this is our water. And it can come out of your neighbor's lawn and come back into your property very easily. So the rate of failure is significant. There's more information we can't, I agree with the gentleman too. Education is key. I'm on an education committee on the national level, and it's a challenge. But anytime y'all need some continuing ed, let me know. I'm real handy, So I'm going to try to address your numbers. I think the annual testing and the enforcement of that is real. I do have compassion for that customer that gets gouged on the testing. I see it. I hear about it from multiple states because it's kind of where I do have conversations. I've heard Sean Cleary's name mentioned. I'll probably text Sean today, just kind of let him know how things go. It's a challenge, and I think a bigger part of the price gouging could be rectified with a properly run program on the part of the water systems. There's different approaches. I'm not going to get into the minutia of all of that right now, but that's just my thoughts, and I did want somebody put a number together for you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Joe Moranto. I'm a master plumber here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Hey, Brad, how you doing? So one of the things that this is going for is low hazard residential, which has a lot to do with irrigation systems, right? Out of all the different backflows that are out there, these are ones that are probably used the least because your lawn irrigation is not running all day, every day, right? So you have chances for parts in there that have rubber components to dry rot, to fail. That's the reason that the manufacturers put it in their manufacturer specifications, their recommendations to do it yearly, is because anything that has any kind of rubber inside of it has a chance to dry rot. It's got a shelf life on it. And if it's not used every day, it's not getting wet, it has more of a chance of getting dry rotted and failing. So I just want to put that out there as a little bit of, this is what this is actually for, is these irrigation systems. And fertilizers, pesticides, things like that are not something that you want coming back into your water system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ranto. All right, is there any other further board discussion on this? All right, and hearing none from the public as well, we're going to move forward onto our agenda to item D4, Rule 503, private outdoor recreational structures. Mr. Hassard, do you want to lead this conversation, or how would you like to structure that?
I personally have some concerns with that from different perspectives. I guess my position on that is the commission comfortable with the way it reads? And if not, maybe we should think about some ideas for some modification. It's kind of broad. It's kind of, I guess, worked around in a lot of places. I understand there's some obviously legislative need for that, but it just seems like it has a whole lot of gaps in building code and construction practices. Just something for the commission to consider.
Absolutely. Thank you. A brief synopsis of that for the commission and the public as well that may not be aware of it. There are some exclusions to the building codes, specifically a structure that is not in a high wind hazard area, does not exceed 500 square feet, not used as a residence, not attached to a residence, not the same address as a residence, not on the same property as a residence, cannot get a homestead, cannot be used for commercial purposes, cannot be within the corporate limits of a municipality or within a subdivision within a jurisdiction. So I think initially this was more for the, where I'm from, the man shack fishing camp, where sometimes things were getting a little more challenging. Now, I will tell you, especially when you get into fishing camps, and certainly, from the southern part of the state, we move into V zones, which automatically require some level of building code for the federal FEMA regulations that we're all required to comply with for the NFIP. So oftentimes the issue is they don't want to get engineering, right? I don't think this has really been discussed in 20 years, though, since it went in place, to see, is this something that this group thinks is healthy and continue to do, or what were the comments? Mr. Witch?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to give some support to what Brad said. You know, for 20 years now, I've been responsible for a lot of, I know that doesn't happen often.
It does
Mark it
not,
down.
but I appreciate it.
You know, for 20 years, I've been handling building code enforcement for a lot of jurisdictions in South Louisiana. And while I don't get it as often today, it can turn into a real battle over whether something should be exempt or not. And we don't always have the greatest language to support us. And I'm not kidding. I mean, I had these arguments over, you know, quote unquote camps that were $800,000, $1 million, and they wanted it exempted from building codes. And I don't think that is the intent. I think the intent is a little small camp in the middle of the woods somewhere where if it does fall apart, it's not going to hurt anyone or hurt anybody else's property. And same thing. I mean, I've been to true fishing camps that you have to take a boat to get to them, and I think it's meant for those types of things and not these multi-million-dollar dwellings, basically.
Commercial structures.
Yeah, I
that are
mean,
rented.
and so while they're not maybe being used as a residence because they're part-time and they don't have a homestead exemption, they're still not really a camp. And some of these are being rented out to people through vacation rentals and so forth. So, you know, I don't know the best way to tighten up the language off the top of my head, but I do think it's something that we could be a little bit more clear with on how those structures are defined.
Yeah, I think we've had the same challenges, I think, throughout the state with Airbnb, that type of product where people come in and do it, and that's certainly not the intention. I believe the legislation, or rule rather, does have a maximum of 500 square feet, and I don't know that a lot of jurisdictions were aware of that.
That's struck.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I apologize. I was under pressure for all
Yeah,
of
that was
Mike.
just for the accessory structure. And we
Well, maybe-
actually, in the law that we just passed last session, we actually lowered that to 200 square feet in the law. If you read it, what it used to be 500, it's 200 now.
Just for commentary, in Grayson, Louisiana, where I'm not exactly sure where that is, there is a camp that's on an island in the middle of some large body of water. I haven't read all of it yet. It's 3,700 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, with electricity. It's $3.9 million. I struggle to see that as a camp, y'all. It's also for rent for large fishing parties, bachelor parties, or corporate events. So I think that's something that this body should consider some, I hate to say the word more restrictive, but how about we look at it as more protective language
Agree.
to make some adjustments to. I asked Terry to put that on an agenda solely as a discussion item because it has been a problem on the contractor side for many, many years. And we've always battled with the code council. Well, now that y'all both live in the same building, it would be really great if we could all try to find a solution.
Absolutely.
So I have a question, just for a way to possibly to delineate camps from commercial buildings, insurability. I own a camp that I have insured, for the sole purpose of it's not just something that I'm gonna let fall apart in the woods. Is there a way to delineate that in regards to what we're trying to do here?
I think the challenge that I think a lot of jurisdictions face with this is you have a building that's built. And so then when it's converted later, when it's rented out, what do you do at that point? Do you tear it down? It doesn't meet the building code standards, or you don't know if it does. Do you open walls? What if it's foundation issues? I mean, there can be a lot of this that once something's built, I think the intention was a very small, nothing in the middle of the woods, and it's hard to legislate that. And so I think that we've seen this kind of abused, and I think trying to tie, if it's insured is one thing, but what happens when they drop that, or when they carry a policy, and how would you know about it, and how do you practically regulate it?
Right. That would be my concern from a jurisdiction perspective is we don't know insurability when the application
for the construction permit, or at least in this case, the request for the affidavit for exemption is submitted to the jurisdiction. They're just looking at a set of general plans to say, I'm going to build a $5 million shack. They're looking at it from a code perspective and receiving this request for an exemption. They're not seeing in a year and a half the advertisement on VRBO or the level of insurance that's assigned to the structure. So I really think it comes down to either amending the rule or providing some clear guidance to jurisdictions to say, these are the questions to ask when you get this kind of an application, or rewrite this in such a way that there is no question.
I lean towards rewriting it so there's no question.
Me too. I think I'll do a little homework for the board is kind of come up, maybe between the next series of meetings, some language that we can get together and vote on and make some amending rules to the, regular rulemaking procedure process. Any comment from the general public on this?
Here's our camp owner.
Yes, sir. Billy McShann, Vernon Parish. Without an amendment to the rule, there's nothing for the building official to stand on when it comes to permitting. You come in, you say, hey, you have a camp, and you fill out the affidavit, and if I can't go through this definition and say, well, you don't apply, then I have no basis to turn down that permit. So the rule's going to have to be amended. And I'm glad y'all talking about this today because I got to deal with farm structures. We need some clarification on that because I don't believe it's always fell underneath the same guidelines of what y'all have posted here. Like I have a real life situation. I got a commercial park with a bunch of commercial businesses. This guy's come in and filled out an affidavit for a farm structure inside that commercial park. Now, can I deny his application if he fills out the affidavit? All he does say, hey, I raise a bee.
It says not used for commercial purposes.
But you can't. Where does it say that? Where does it tell me in the current rules?
Right. And I believe what we have before us and on screen is actually the current rules, not the proposed rule.
No, that's not current. No, because farm and recreational structures are. You do not use those 8 items for a farm structure. That's for recreational structures.
Correct.
There's nothing in there for farm structures.
This is the current rule, correct?
But those rules are not for farm structures.
Correct.
There's different rules for farm structures. I mean, y'all got them together right there. But I can't I can't use those same rules for a farm structure.
We can certainly clarify that. I think that.
And so, I've even taken the rule to my to attorney and say, hey, how do? All I got to do is say I got a bee. I raise a bee, and so my structure is a farm structure now. I think there should be a little more guidance in that area.
Certainly. Ms. Witch?
Yeah, just to be clear, so the first part of the rule A, which talks about not used as a residence, not attached to it, that is for private outdoor recreational structures. But then if you go to B, it talks a little bit more about farm structures, where it says that the governing authority of the parish municipality may not enforce the Louisiana State Uniform Construction Code pertaining to the construction or improvement of a farm structure or private outdoor recreational structure. Where is the part that talks about, because there is a part in the rule that says it's a structure constructed on a farm other than a residence or structure attached to it for use on the farm, including but not limited to barns, sheds, and poultry houses. So there's not a lot of language on it, but I do think we could do better with all of it.
Mr. Chair, I think it's probably the consensus of the commission that this rule, which is again the existing rule, needs drastic reorganization and amendment for clarity.
Couldn't agree more.
And so I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to refer it to the residential committee for review and bring a proposed rule back to at our next meeting.
In particular, I think our residential chair has a lot of great points and strong opinions on it. I think it's a great idea. All right.
I resign.
Put it in writing.
So we can certainly do that. Okay. Is there any other public comment? If not, we're going to move forward. Yes, sir.
Nicholas Vasquez, Chief Building Official of the City of St. George. I just wanted to put it out there that there's also the FEMA regulations because they come in to town from time to time and they visited with us and they point out some of these structures and they say, hey, this is in a floodway, what's going on here? So just wanted to point that out as well.
Absolutely. All right.
And Mr. Chair, I believe there is also in the Act 881 specific language regarding the regulation of farm structures that needs to be taken into consideration in the proposed rulemaking.
Sure. Certainly cannot be in violation of statute. Yes, sir.
I appreciate y'all working on this, and hopefully we can rewrite it to make it easier on the building officials because this is tough. I'll give you a couple of examples of people just buying these little portable buildings on the side of the road and trying to make Airbnbs out of them. One of my districts, they'll rent anything if they can put a bed in it. And this has to be addressed. And I had 2 occasions here in the last few weeks where I turned it down as a resident. Well, I'm going to file for a camp exemption. So we really need to be looking into that.
Absolutely.
We have some serious issues out there. Appreciate y'all's time.
Question. So they've effectively lied on their affidavit if they turn around and use it for commercial purposes, right?
Correct.
Like what recourse is there to stop it at that point?
You won't know about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You won't know about it.
But even if you do, I mean, you can certainly try and get a DA to prosecute somebody for injuring a public. I mean, there's the avenues for it. None that a local government's going to pursue in reality. None that's going to make a docket.
Right.
And I think, again, ultimately the question is certainly for the safety of the occupants, but also the adjacent property owners. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think that this needs to be cleaned up. I don't think it's realistically, other than the changes that were made in 1186, been touched since the 2005-2006 sessions. So, all right. Hearing no other comment, I'm going to move forward on the agenda. Let's go to item D5, continuing education requirements, Rule 707. Mr. Hasser? Ms. Terra? Item D5, Rule 707, continuing ed requirements. There's been a lot of talks on that. I'll comment briefly as to if we should have individual requirements outside of the I-code requirements. I know currently for myself and a couple of members of this commission, there's 60 hours every 3 years, so an average of 20 with half of them coming from preferred providers. Although I think it's a good idea to consider specific standards for that. I think it may be challenging to do that, and I think that I can tell you getting 60 every 3 is challenging for myself and certainly my staff. And so adding to that may or may not be a great idea. I'd love to hear some comment on it. Yes, sir, Mr. Witch.
Yeah, I think, when we first started this years ago, the ICC continuing education was 45 hours for every 3 years. Then they raised it to 60 hours for every 3 years, and it is pretty taxing. And they did make sure that you had to have at least half of that training. For when he talks about preferred providers, ICC is actually approving those courses. So you can't go to a course that's doesn't really have any technical merit. So it's pretty tight on that. Now I do agree though, if we are going to do the manufactured housing part of it, that does carry a different set of continuing education requirements.
I think Tara can speak to that a little better than me because I can't seem to get my hours straight, and I think she knows it.
Yes, good morning. And I did put it at the bottom of the document, some draft language that I drafted for you guys. So when we decide what we want to do with the rest of the language, we can combine this with it. But the requirement, federal requirement, is 8 hours of continuing ed every 3 years that they would do. And the same place that's offering the training course for the installation inspectors, they're going to put out a training course for the continuing ed for us as well. So they'll be able to take it in both places, and we would monitor it with their renewal.
So I think at a minimum, we should add that language. I don't know if it would be appropriate to make a motion at this time, but if so, I'm happy to move the proposed language for the manufactured housing installation inspector.
Mr. Witch, I could propose that I am overhauling all of Title 55 so that it aligns with our Act 81 that just passed. So I was going to include that with the entire package, and we can vote on that all together if you wish.
Especially in
But
light of us not having that training out to the general public and the inspectors yet, it may make more
Yeah,
sense.
that's fine.
And also bear in mind too that that manufactured housing installation inspection certification, most of these guys won't be active till closer to January 1, if not after. So they do have 3 years to obtain that. So we had a little bit of time on that.
Okay.
So in an effort to save Tara, the less she has to submit piecemeal is a lot easier for her. And therefore it's a lot easier for me. Please, even you, Mike, please have sympathy on me.
I'll think about it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Witch, my understanding that you're rescinding your motion.
I am.
Thank you, sir. All right, any comment from general public? Yes, sir.
Billy McShann, Vernon Parish. I've completed the training already. 12 hours. It was not a bad course, but it's not a course for inspectors. It's a course for installers. And at the very last module that you come to, it says, hey, who can do inspections on manufactured homes? Two of the people that can are ICC certified inspectors and inspectors that work for a jurisdiction that are already deemed qualified to do inspections for manufactured housing installations. However, I did learn a lot in the course about manufactured home installations and what's required of the inspectors. Now, the 8 hours of continuing education on that every 3 years is what their standard is now for an installer. I don't intend to buy a rig and start installing mobile homes anytime soon, so that kind of seems excessive. Because typically, what are we going to be looking at on mobile home? Well, the plumbing. Is the plumbing connected correctly? We're using the right fittings. Is it strapped to the mobile home every 4 foot? That's one of the things we do now. Is the electrical done right? It's something we do currently. We're not going to go into the mobile home and check the plugs. We're not going to go in there and see if they're functional because that's still not a part of this job. The only other thing we're going to be doing is checking the piers, make sure the ground is sloped away from the trailer to keep where it don't have any standing water, and make sure the bottom board is sealed up. I'm all for training, but 8 hours every 3 years is that pure leaning or not seems sort of excessive to me. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. All right, hearing no other public comment, any further board comment, we're going to move on to item D6, Rule 901, employment after January 1st, 2007, relative to provisional F registration. I know there was a lot of conversation during some of the amendments to 1186 from this group. And there's some allowances within our rules that grandfather certain individuals within that. I know that from a building official perspective, I want to say I was talking to Tara, there's 2 maybe statewide that we're dealing with on this, 3. And so it's on the screen here and on everybody's individual screen if you'll get that pulled back up.
I believe the 3 that are registered with us fall under, it's either 905 or the next, 905. That would grandfather. They're not provisional.
Okay.
Did you want to talk about provisional?
No. Let's just do provision on the agenda. We've been here. I want to make sure because we're in the next section for that one. I apologize. So I guess looking for board comment on this. I can tell you with a larger jurisdiction and there being a smaller pool every day, it is challenging to hire inspectors. We have a good training program with our staff where we bring in individuals. From my group, I'm blessed to have large enough staff where I don't have to have them utilize this and sign off on inspections. It's more of a shadowing program for a little while. But there's a lot of jurisdictions that I think really rely on this. And there was a lot of conversation in that as it relates to that 1 or 2 year, depending on if they're a veteran or not. So I guess I'd look for any board comment on this. Mr. Hassert?
I'm not a member of the commission, but I have a comment on this.
Yes, sir.
We don't do a provisional license for any other profession. None. Your lawyer doesn't have one, your engineers don't have one, your architect doesn't have one, your contractors don't have one. And the purpose of this commission, along with everyone else that I just mentioned, is for public safety. And this program, while it may be helpful at times, I'm concerned with the true effects of this program. I won't name any large sewage and water board agencies that have been, quote, provisional for the last 9 years. Okay? We could just go on and on. If we're concerned about public safety, perhaps you ladies and gentlemen could consider making some sort of adjustment to that rule. If you're not concerned with it, leave it alone.
Mr. Witch?
Yeah, I find it a lot of places. I guess I struggle with the effectiveness of this provisional F, because a lot of jurisdictions, when they hire someone, they already in their hiring have a time frame where you're required to get a certification, and if you can't, then you're likely going to have to move on and go do something else. And just in my own case, I've never used a provisional F, because when I hire someone new who's not certified, they don't do anything in the field other than training with a certified inspector. And so we don't even register them with the State Code Council until they are certified and they are ready to start performing the work on their own. Maybe that's the wrong way to do it, but I don't let them do anything until they are certified. So, I guess I would like to hear from others where they feel like this is something that helps them. But I can give you a few examples of people that have worked under the provisional F way longer than 12 months. And I don't think it's been enforced very well in the past of making sure people get certified the way they're supposed to. So, my opinion is, and we did discuss this in a committee. Actually, was when we were looking at the legislation, it was discussed, and but there were some people on the committee that found it beneficial on how their hiring processes go where they work. So, I would like to hear that, but I think it's important that it gets used the right way. There's so many places that use a provisional F, and that person's out there working on their own with no certifications.
Mike, just picking up on that, the architecture world practices the same way. There's allowances for an educated architect to practice under the guidelines of a licensed professional architect, but no way should they ever step up and certify and are allowed to do that on anything with that. It's kind of more of an apprenticeship to learn to get to that point.
And just for the record, I'm not opposed to on-the-job training and experience.
Sure.
Certainly not. 12 months is a very long time, and as Mr. Witch said.
Well, and even though, but I mean, look, if it's my home being built, I want to make sure that foundation's right, and I want somebody certified looking at my home. Right? I don't necessarily want a trainee, which is why in my jurisdictions that I've supervised, I don't allow for that. It's just been an allowance within the state of Louisiana.
I mean, hypothetically, speaking only hypothetically, is it possible for the certified building official to talk on the phone in the truck and the apprentice, for lack of better words, go sign off on everything and say it's good and get signed off on it? I'm not comfortable with that. No. I'm just going to go back to y'all's focus and mission is the health and safety.
It might fall back in a premise in that instance, let's say. So as an architect, if that apprentice or associate does something wrong, that liability falls back upon the architect that's certified and stamped that.
Sure.
I would think in the same case there with the building official, somebody under this provisional designation, they did something wrong, that liability would fall back upon that CBO. There's some accountability to that, then there might be a little less.
Well, I think that one of the challenges that I have with that, Mr. Embaugh, is the building official and the municipality holds no liability.
Correct.
And they cannot be held liable for a, quote, poor, bad inspection, unless, of course, it's criminal. And then it goes back on the individual.
Mr. Witch?
Yeah, and you know, to me, the language even in the provisional F is not great. I mean, it says make sure that the individual is under the supervision of a registered code enforcement officer. Well, everybody is technically under the supervision of the building official, but what does that mean? You know, I think if you're going to keep a provisional, or if you're going to create an apprentice, or whatever it might be, it needs to be very clear that, I think, in my opinion, that they can't sign off on anything. They shouldn't be performing any work on their own. It should be a true apprenticeship like you see in the trades, where you're going to have someone overseeing everything that you do. And the reality is as a building official, it is impossible to be on every inspection that your inspectors are doing. So if that provisional person is out there doing inspections without certification, there's a lot more to inspections than people realize, and you learn that after you've been on the job a little while.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add also, and I believe in reference to not only 901, but I believe that the next one is 905 on your agenda. Everything references 2007. And most of us are aware that I believe that's the onset of the building code and the building code official and inspector program. As there were none, they were trying to create them. It is 19 years later. Maybe it should have been addressed in the past, but it's certainly like my suggestion is that you try to address it now. Contractor licensing did the same thing for a period of time when they created certain classifications of licenses. There were certain requirements that had to be met, and they were, quote, grandfathered in. We've quit doing that about 18 years ago.
Tara, can we look into for the next meeting how many provisional Fs we have that are currently compliant? Just curious to see what that number looks like, and then I would expect to see on the September agenda probably a rule repealing this section of the.
And if I could add as a final note to this, Ms. Rebecca can give you the numbers she has that are reported to her, but as I think Mr. Witch had indicated earlier, we don't know how many employees are out there acting provisionally that haven't registered as provisional.
Well, but I would say those are acting non-compliantly, right? Because there was a grandfather or an allowance for an apprenticeship, if you will, but you still have to register. And so if they're not registered, they just didn't do their part.
I totally agree. I'm just suggesting that number is going to be very skewed to the actuality.
It certainly can be. I guess what I wanted to look at, and just at least within the timing of application in the event that a rule change is voted on and approved, do we have somebody within a month of falling out of that? Do we consider that within the conversation for people that are trying to do it the right way and follow within the law and just would like that be considered? The truth is, I don't think we're going to have any.
Yeah, as far as the numbers, yes, I can run the numbers and provide that information for you for the next meeting. I will say that for the provisional F, any numbers that I pull, they will be ones that are not currently ICC certified. They are under that 12 or 24 month period. And once they are compliant and they obtain the ICC certification, that provisional falls off.
Sure.
So it's no longer in our system as a provisional, they're just active. So the numbers I'll pull will just be the ones that aren't currently ICC certified.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I was just about to say that if you get that information and we can see who actually passes and becomes an official, then we would have some data to look at to see if they're just sitting there for, like Mr. Brad said, over 12 months.
Sure. All right, wonderful. Is there any public comment? If not, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is very similar in nature. Any board comment? All right, let's move on to item D7, which is grandfathering employment of at least 10 years on January 1st, 2007 relative to grandfathering regulations. I think this is extremely similar to what we just discussed. Certainly we can go as deep as y'all like into it. I don't think it needs a tremendous amount of discussion in that we're looking at 20 years now. At a point, if you're going to be administering the code, administering inspectors, I think the general public is owed qualified people to do that. I think that when you're signing documents telling an insurance company this is what it is, you should at least be some level of certification to do that. And I don't know that the insurance industry has a method where they're verifying that, right? They're not looking at a CEO and saying, well, was this building official qualified? Does he have any certifications? Was this inspector qualified? Do they have any certifications? I just don't think that's where we are, and I think certainly someone could comment on that. So if there's any discussion, we can certainly have it. If not, we'll hear from the public and then move forward. Any public discussion on this item? From the board's perspective, I'd expect to see something on the next agenda regarding this for the September votes. All right, let's move on to item D8, Rule 111, which is the International Plumbing Code relative to adopting proposed language. Mr. Tasser, do you want to bring this, or do you think it's somebody in the public that would?
I think that
better suited?
that I don't have a whole lot of knowledge of that or any comments on it, other than I try to stay away from plumbing as much as I can these days for obvious reasons. Plumbing code is something that y'all have to adopt or not adopt, but I have no comments on it.
So I've received some comments from different groups regarding some very large sites where we have some regulations, 1602, which regulates, Chapter 16, regulates travel trailers, mobile home, manufactured home parks. I will tell you my opinion in looking at the original documents that created this code council all the way up to Act 881. I do not believe that we are tasked with regulating travel trailers and manufactured homes outside of the egress of manufactured home, which is a recent amendment that went into effect Saturday. My opinion is that these were written at a time where you had pop-ups, you had tent camps, you had things of that nature where people needed to make sure you had health facilities accessible, where I think today, more often than not, I think these units have facilities provided within them. But regardless of that opinion, I don't know that it is our purview to have regulations that regulate mobile home parks. I just don't think we're tasked or have the authority to do that. Now, could we adopt anything? We could adopt anything. But I don't know that that is something that we need to be involved with for facilities that we don't regulate. Backflow preventers outside of buildings are a much different animal because we regulate those things. We don't regulate mobile homes. We don't regulate travel trailers. And so for me to have regulations that are saying, I want to see this many sewer connections on a job site, I don't know that that is something that we should do. I would expect to see on the next agenda, depending on comment from both the general public as well as this commission, the potential to repeal this section, as I don't feel that we are legislatively tasked with governing it.
So for clarity, Mr. Chairman, your recommendation is that we repeal the entirety of the adopted Chapter 16 travel trailer and mobile manufactured home parks that's currently in the plumbing code?
I suspect that that will be my, I want to look further into this. I wanted to bring it to the board for discussion before I had a formal opinion on it.
Okay.
But I do suspect that to take place. I want to see what the other implications of that would be. And so it may be a tailored amendment. And again, it's not the world according to Nick, right? We're going to have a discussion about it and vote on it and see what we want to do. But I did want to make it known that in looking at the initial language by the legislature, they were very specific to tell us we cannot get involved with manufactured housing. And then so for me to sit here and say, well, we should regulate them when the language was very clear, even to the point we had to amend if we could even regulate the stairs going to them, is something that I think may be best served through DHH. I'm sure you all may be aware of a previous AG opinion from December of 15 that allows DHH to make rules as it relates to plumbing. It just can't be in conflict with our rules. And so I think that it would be an opportunity for us to remove this maybe outside of the building code and give it back to DHH to have an opportunity, or DHS rather, that they have an opportunity to do what they feel is the safest and best for the state of Louisiana. It may not be a code council matter. Is there any comment from the public, specifically DHS? Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, real quick, a little history. So Chapter 16 was a previous amendment to the Louisiana Plumbing Code, I should say to IPC. in 2021. And I see this more as us having a way to ensure that campgrounds, trailer parks, and everything are meeting the requirements of the other sections of the plumbing code that aren't specific to those applications. This exception particularly has to do with cleaning out any sanitary hoses, a dump station, knowing that you have call it an RV or a mobile home. They wanted to provide means so that individuals aren't tempted to or do not dispose of that improperly. So,
And I don't, my challenge with this section is not so much the rules themselves as much as who should have the authority to regulate that group. And it's just challenging for me to understand that if we have no regulatory authority over them in any capacity, it's curious to me that we would regulate their sewer discharge when I think the Department of Health may be the more appropriate body to create those rules and regulate that. And they're allowed to do that as long as their rules aren't in conflict with our rules. It's just, it seems to me from the legislation, both current and past, they were very specific to tell us, y'all are about construction. That's what you're tasked with, is construction. And so I agree with all of the rules, or most of the rules. I just think that it may be better suited to come out of the Department of Health. And that's my opinion. I think everybody should have an opinion, and it's worth a discussion. This is why we wanted to have that conversation today and in a further meeting as well. But that's kind of the conversation, I guess, as well as this red line section as well.
Yeah, there's lots of rules that sound just like this in the state sanitary code.
That's correct. And so if we amend things, the state sanitary code cannot, right? So it is almost an order of preemption in this. But I guess, again, my question is going to be, should we have that authority within this portion of state law, or should we give that to the Department of Health? Is kind of the conversation. Ms. Witch, do you have a question?
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, if you eliminate it, you know, I don't know who's going to do the plumbing inspections that are out there in these campgrounds, and you know, we're looking at plumbing, electrical, and I do like the exception that you put in here, because I can tell you, especially in areas where the base flood elevation that you have to build to, putting one of these service buildings in can be quite a challenge sometimes if they got to be 15, 20 feet in the air. So I do like this added exception that talks about if you have a sewer hookup at each travel trailer, you can get away from the service building. But you know, I don't know. I can tell you the places that I work for, they like that we're enforcing these requirements, just because that's kind of the standard that they follow when they allow these RV parks, and it's more for an RV park. Yeah, I think most mobile home parks, you know, have the sewer in them and so forth that they would need to support those homes. But so it's more the campgrounds, and I think, you know, it's like Chuck said, it's about making sure we have we maintain the cleanliness that should be maintained, and we're not dumping sewer on the ground. I used to camp a lot, and you see some people do some weird stuff out there sometimes. So I don't know. I've always found this chapter helpful, and it was in the Louisiana State Plumbing Code before we went to the IPC, and I was on that transition commission when we made all the original amendments to the IPC, and this was one that actually, you know, if any of you were around for the transition commission, there was a lot of disagreement on what should be amended and what shouldn't be amended, but this was one that there really wasn't any disagreement.
Sure. And again, nothing against the regulations themselves, much as the question of who would have the statutory authority to enforce this. I mean, certainly, again, we can adopt a lot of rules and a lot of things, but to me, a lot of it goes back to what is our task? What are we here for specifically? And I do think it's a good idea. I just, again, don't necessarily know if it's under the code council's purview to regulate RV parks.
I just think LDH is going to have, I mean, they're already strapped for people. It's, you know, they have a hard time servicing, you know, areas that have a lot of mechanical treatment plants and so forth. They're sanitarians usually covering a large area. And so, I guess I'm not sure if, and LDH can speak to that, whether or not they could handle that level of enforcement.
And I think we had that discussion similarly to farm structures, recreational structures. I mean, do those belong if that's the case? And where do we then redraw that line? I agree. Our committee, we had a lot of good discussion on this. It actually was pretty much unanimous consent that we all agree there was a lot of value in that and having it here, because we could not find another location where it exists today.
No, I do not disagree with the rules. Just the question of do we have really the statutory authority to do that is more where I'm falling. But LH, do you want to come speak?
Hi, Karen Benjamin, Deputy Chief Engineer for Louisiana Department of Health. So it's my understanding that part of that Act 836 of 2014, I think it was, that removed our jurisdiction over plumbing. And so the bulk, or probably the entirety of this section that you're referring to, is plumbing. And although the AG's opinion does state that as long as we don't propose anything that's in conflict, we're fine. I still do not believe we can promulgate a plumbing regulation, which is what this would be, in my opinion. So it would need a further legal review to determine whether or not we could even promulgate this type of regulation.
Sure, and it may take further. It seemed to me in that legal opinion that because the AG referred to the ability of you to promulgate rules that couldn't be in conflict with our rules, to me that is inherent to say you can create rules, because it's saying you just can't be in conflict with ours. And so again, I think everything's worth a good discussion. If it's working well, I think that those are good things, but I also think that it's odd to me that we don't regulate anything within these industries whatsoever, and then we have broad authority to say, well, we're going to regulate RV parks. It just seems outside of our purview, in my opinion.
Right. And also, so sanitarian services within the Department of Health, they have parish sanitarians that do perform surveys of the wastewater treatment plants that usually, if the RV park, mobile home park, or whatever is not connected to city sewer, would have a sewer treatment plant. And they do perform surveys of those, usually in response to complaints. But there is a considerable amount, a larger amount of other trailer parks that are tied to city sewer treatment. So those are not routinely, would not be inspected by the sanitarian, parish sanitarians, and therefore would be an increase in workload. And so just considering that, I don't think they probably could take that on without additional TO that's to be provided by the legislature. So again, it would probably need to be reviewed by legal and then determined whether or not the authority would need to be added back in for us to be able to promulgate regulation, and then maybe provide additional TO to perform the inspections.
Thank you. All right, with regards to the specific rule, item 2 in red, is this something the commission wants to make a move on with immediacy and through an emergency process? Or I guess, Tara, where are we at in that?
I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood. Are you talking about the correction to 312, or we're still on number 1? 1602.
16021, the item in red, travel trailer park, which provides sewer inlet connection, sewer hookup at each travel trailer pad, may be exempted by local jurisdiction building official from section
Okay.
1602.1.
So whatever you guys decide, if we want to adopt this exception number 2, it would be an emergency rule to amend the 2021 edition that's currently in place. And then I will update what we adopted last month because I haven't sent the notice of intent to the Louisiana Register. I can just add that in with it, saying for number 2.
Okay. And what is number 2? Show me that.
It's a typo where I believe we reference 312.10.
310 versus 11, yeah.
Yeah, that, yeah, number 2 is just a correction of a typo.
Any further board discussion on the exceptions and even the typo? Yes, sir, Ms. Witch.
So, Tara, you're saying that you would want to move this as an emergency rule if we're keeping this, correct?
Yes, well, okay. It doesn't sound like we've reached a consensus yet on what we want to do for 1602.1. So if you guys need to discuss it and we come back with an emergency rule to be proposed for next month, I will have that drafted and you can vote on that emergency rule. And that will be to amend 21. And then I will plug that into the 24 adoption as well.
I like the added exception under 1602. I was just wondering where it came from. Who kind of pushed that?
There's a large project in the northern part of the state that's having a challenge with this specifically.
Of the service building requirement?
Yeah. And
That's correct.
And they're asking
And
for
Mr.
some
Chair,
relief.
It's quite challenging.
if I may, I also, as this relates, my statement relates to the task force being tasked, and one of the focuses of that task force being discrepancies in building code requirements from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. One thing that concerns me in this exemption language is may be exempted by the local jurisdiction building official from this section. I believe that allows a level of discrepancy where one jurisdiction may authorize the exemption and another jurisdiction may not. If the purpose of the exemption is to say that independent travel trailers, which are defined by code as those that have a water closet within the travel trailer itself, and therefore the requirement for a sanitation facility on site is essentially unnecessary, what is that criteria by which a local building official makes that decision doing the exemption or not? And I think that goes back to some of the purpose of this commission, which is that consistency in the code requirements. And so if you have a statement that authorizes a may, leaving it to local discretion, then the jurisdiction in North Louisiana may in fact make the exemption, but the community right next door may say, nope, you've got to do it. And I think that's some of what we get frustration about, is that inconsistency. So I would prefer that this either be a shall exemption or that there be something by which the local building official is making that decision and granting the exemption. And I don't know if there's any other discussion from other building officials or other representatives regarding that.
Mr. Rich?
My only concern with the shall is when we're talking about a travel trailer park or a mobile home park, if we put the shall in there and these local jurisdictions want these parks to be built a certain way, we're now taking that ability away from a jurisdiction, right? So it's kind of like subdivision regulation, basically. So that's my only. I understand exactly what you're saying for consistency. I agree wholeheartedly, but because this is more of a development than just a building code requirement, I worry that we take some of the development requirements away from the local jurisdictions when they might want a park that has service buildings and so forth. Otherwise, they don't want the park. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on that part.
Julie, would it give you more comfort? I do want to decide if we're going to move forward with this rule today or not. Would it give you more comfort if we were to vote on the emergency rule for travel trailer park, the item 2 in red, and had further discussion at the next meeting as to maybe providing some additional context as to when this would be applicable? I just thought what I don't want to do is, if we all believe it's a reasonable idea, I don't want to leave a project hanging in the wind while we sort out some other details of it for consistency's sake. And I think it's important to have consistency.
I agree, and I'm comfortable with the rule in the context of the other rules that this is specific to independent travel trailer facilities. I believe that some of we are tasked with is providing that level of consistency across the state of Louisiana and assurances of that consistency. And so it is just something that we need to be cognizant of as we discuss rules, where we leave open a level of local decision making that may result in inconsistency. That's all I wanted to point out for the purposes of discussion by this commission.
I think there's a lot of value in that, and maybe something we look at exactly what, maybe there are some shalls that it does automatically exempt and some other mays within that, so that you do give some local authority as well, depending on what exactly the context of the section is.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment in relation to this? This comes down to, as I've told y'all before, that y'all, and I believe that you are seeing it differently these days, you are also part of an economic development policy commission. The particular issue here is a metadata center in North Louisiana, currently the world's largest construction project, where they're trying to house workers. There's some challenges with local government versus existing regulation. There's some challenges with building officials who don't want to go afoul of the legislation that regulates their conduct. At the same token, a $90 billion construction project needs a lot of workers, and economic development in that area is really dependent on getting that. Bear in mind that you're going to have 3 to 4 more challenges, or 5 perhaps, with another data center being proposed in Alexandria, Shreveport, Bossier, and SpaceX going wherever they're going. I don't remember where they're
Island.
going. Sir?
Pecan Island.
There you go. So this is something that is going to be far-reaching, whatever your decisions are. So just wanted to give that to you for food for thought. When I tell you it's very sensitive, it's very sensitive.
Yes, sir.
As y'all may know, I work in Cameron Parish, and you want to see a crisis drive down to Cameron Parish right now with RV parks. And yes, as a building official, we need some guidance on what the council is recommending here, because we inspect so-called mobile home parks almost daily down there. If a person got an acre of land, he's trying to put 10 mobile homes on it because they're renting them for $800 up per lot. So it's a money goal, but it's all driven by the big plants that's going on down there, similar to these data centers. So, we've been down there, and the owners are trying to do their own plumbing because they can't get plumbers. It's a mess. So we do need some guidance. And yeah, I would love if DHH would take it over. Trust me. But I don't think that can happen because they don't have the staff for it. So we're stuck with the baggage and trying to get it operational, because we'll see water hose bibs and the sewer hose bibs a foot apart, stuff like that. So we definitely need some guidance and some help on what y'all going to exempt here. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we adopt this exception number 2, or promulgate it as an emergency rule, and in the meantime also make the typographical corrections as well in number 2.
So just to clarify, you're making a dual motion to adopt the emergency rule to section 1602.1 to add the exception to travel trailer park, which provides a sewer inlet connection sewer hookup at each travel trailer pad may be exempted by local jurisdiction building official from section 1602.1, which is service buildings for independent travel trailers, as well as correction to section 312.11 of the, is that IPC?
It's
as well.
IPC.
IPC to correct 312.11 and 312.11.3. That will be a standard rulemaking, not a emergency rule. Is that correct, Mr. Witch?
Whatever's easier for Tara.
Thank you.
Can we get a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ford. Roll call, please.
You always catch me unprepared for roll call vote.
Why'd you figure out an emergency rule?
We never did this for the board, really.
Things are always changing.
Yep. Okay. Jason Aycock,
Yes.
Juliet Cassain,
Yes.
Trent Clark,
Yes.
Jackie Dudakis is not here, Jay Dufour,
Yes.
James Edwards is not here, Fritz Simball. Oh, he left. Okay. Andrea Ford is not here, Ken Jones,
Yes.
Brian Noss,
Yes.
Nick LeBlanc,
Yes.
Pat McCormick is not here, PJ Odom,
Yes.
Rodney Taylor,
Yes.
Charles Visser,
Yes.
Michael Witch.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right, let's get back to our regular agenda item. No other comments on that. Mr. Hassett, did you have something to say?
I have just two things in general. I guess you can put them under new business. They're not agenda items. Just some things that have come to me in the last day or so. Mr. Dufour, do you have an update on us on that legislative, or I'm sorry, the judicial action, the injunction against the particular building official in New Orleans that we talked about last month?
City of New Orleans legal department had no comment. They're still on have a stay and it hasn't been brought back to court.
Can you advise if they intend to or not? You don't know, and that's fine if you don't know. But all right, well, no comment means that this council is most likely going to have to take some action at that point, and I'll get some further details and bring it to you next meeting. Further, under 373727, letter F, I just want to read this to you and then ask a question. The governor may remove a member of the commission for cause or at the request of the chairman for cause or for failure to attend more than half the regularly scheduled meetings within a 12-month period. I believe you have several members that have far exceeded that. If it's the council's wishes, we can get that data prepared and we can prepare that for submission to boards and commissions for replacements.
I think we certainly would wish that. I'm going to reach out to some of those individuals personally this week, as I know that Tara has reached out a handful of times, but I'm going to call them as well. And just ask if it's something that you can't participate in, that's okay. You need to submit that resignation to boards and commissions. If not, I think we're going to have to take action as the board.
And that's what I just wanted to bring to your attention. I'm not driving towards any of that, but there are some members whose attendance has been a little bit less than others, if you will. And they represent organizations that are intended to be represented by this commission that have no representation at this point.
Couldn't agree more.
We'll get that data to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to move.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Ms. Clark. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.